Okay, again, good morning, everyone. Yesterday we have started with our Postman related topics, and we have covered it, get users and get user. Both are based on get calls. We'll also learn about post, put, patch, delete, all those stuff today. But before that, we'll do a quick revision on what we have learned so far, so that you guys can correlate and understand. Good. So we understood in Postman, we create everything in a collection so that we group all of the similar requests so that it's easy for us to go search and find an API, do some modifications. So we keep all the similar requests in a particular collection. It's basically a folder kind of structure. And we also understood what is headers. Headers are basically used to transfer metadata. This means very important information that a client wants to send it to server and the server wants to send it to client. So all this metadata information like your bearer tokens, what we are going to see about how we can do authentication, what are the other stuff. But yeah, all the important information will be transferred here. And then we also have path parameters and query parameters. Path parameters are basically part of the resource itself, which means they are all mandatory fields. They can be changing. Most of the time in yesterday's case, we have a make my trip where the path parameter is changing from flight, hotel stays, and other stuff. Query parameters are optional parameters, but they can be one or many things. If there are many, they are all separated by the and symbol, and they are most basically used to filter or sort the resources based upon your requirements. And all the APIs in the world are basically predominantly using these four CRUD operations. CRUD stands for create, read, update, and delete. If you want to do a create operation, you are going to use a HTTP method called get. We're going to read, we're going to use for create we're going to use post. For read we are going to use get. For update we are going to use put, and for delete we are going to use delete. HTTP method. Good. We also have three other methods: patch, head, and options. We have time to learn about it. We will learn about that. And we also have some other HTTP methods which are not quite commonly used, but these four and maybe these three is enough for us. And we also have learned there are three variables so far: environment variable, collection variable, and global variable. You prefer to use an environment variable if you want to maintain a test data between different environments, so that you can just toggle them. You can just toggle the environment here, so that it's very easy for you to change. Okay, so you keep most of the environment related stuff in the environment variable. Okay, for other stuff you can use a collection variable where the scope of that variable lies within the collection. And you can also use global variable if you want to share something across the entire workspace. Then you can use a global variable. Again, there is one more thing called as local variable, which is only applicable for that particular request. We're going to learn about that today. And there are two ways to create the variables. One is you go and create them manually. Okay, if you want to go and create a collection variable, click on this collection, go to variable, create these values automatically by yourself. Or you can also go to prerequisite tabs or test tabs and then use the snippets that are available here. Okay, set a global variable, set a environment variable, set a collection variable, all these things. Okay, you can go and set them using the code. So there are two ways to create variables. One is manually, other one is using code snippets. Okay, now we have learned about three of these, but sometimes we only want something to write in a global in a local level. Okay, you don't want that to be shared among the collection also. Just to only in this particular request I want to use it. In those cases you can also use local variable. Okay, so maybe here we have something called as get a variable. So if you want to get some local variable, you can use this. But before that I want to set it. Okay, so there is set variable key. What is the variable key I want to do? Maybe id or int3. Okay, and then maybe I will give some hard-coded value here. This is for demo purpose, right? Okay, so into 3 I'm setting a value as 5, and next I want to get that value into 3. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a console.log and then just to do a print. Okay, that's it, guys. So let's save this and let's go to the console. Let's clear all of that what we have, and let's try to send it now. So if you notice, the value is getting printed as 5. Okay, the value is 5. This is what we set for int 3. So it's getting printed. So if you have some requirement that you need a variable only within this particular request, okay, the reason why I have created this as a collection variable is because whatever the number that I'm generating here, I want to use that in another request within the collection. That's why I have created a collection variable. Okay, otherwise you can use a local variable to do this. Okay, so it's up to you, decide on what level of scope that you need for that variable and use it. Suppose there is a good question asked by someone today, that if you have variables at multiple levels, for example, let's create variables at collection level. So I'm going to create a variable, let's say uh, demo, some value demo, and value will be 1. Okay, so this demo is 1, or maybe I will give it as collection. Okay, collection. Okay, and I also create one more variable, that's this is an environment variable. I don't want an environment. I'm going to create a global variable, and name of this is again a demo. Okay, but this time I know the initial value doesn't matter, so the current value what I'm giving is it's global. Okay, so I have two variables, one is global, one is collection, and I'm closing both of those, and I'm going and setting the local variable. This time the name is demo and the value is basically local. Okay, and here I want to get the demo value. Okay, or you can, yeah, if you have something like this, then if you try to use that in your, I'm just setting this variable, and if I try to use that maybe in the body or somewhere, okay, maybe I want to use it here, something like this, or maybe I use a query parameter demo and the value is coming from demo, something like this. So if you notice, if I hover over the mouse, it is giving collection level variable because it doesn't know that there is a local level variable, but it will print the local level variable only. Okay, let's try to see what's happening when I send the request. So if you notice, the demo equal to local is what being sent. Okay, so this is because if you have a variable that is having the same name at different levels, the one with the least scope, that is in our case it is local. Okay, then that gets the precedence. Okay, so if you notice, this one is now, even though it's showing like this, it doesn't know that there is a collection variable in the, sorry, the local variable in the prerequisite trap. So it's giving collection level, but at the runtime it is choosing the one that is local. Okay, this is your local variable, right? So that's what happens. So just keep in this mind, people may ask you in an interview, so you should be in a position to answer them. Okay, let's clear all of this. I also don't need this, let's remove that. And we can also remove this. We also don't need this. We also don't need this variables, but for now, okay, let's keep it as no problem. Okay, good. So now what else we want to do? Suppose anyone has done manual testing of APIs before? Anyone have done manual testing of APIs?
Yes, Amutan, I have done.
Okay, what will you normally validate?
The status codes
Okay,
and the response. What
okay,
is there?
okay, good. What else?
Response time.
Yeah, okay,
Sometime we need to validate the header as well.
very good one. Schema, yes, Vinith. So maybe I'll make a note of that. So whatever you guys are telling, I'll just make a note of it. So you guys will validate response code, okay, and then response time, okay, guys. Pardon the typo, okay. Response schema, and what else? What else? Response. Response itself, right? Response, some value in the response. Okay, maybe response itself, some value in the response. Okay, so this is normal validation that we normally do. Okay, but how will you do this? So you go and manually see, okay, I see a 200, there is a pass. Okay, the time is 590 seconds. Okay, there is a pass. Okay, the size is okay, less than this. Okay, it is a pass. So you do manual validations, and people can also do validation of the headers. Okay, this is very important. Validation of headers. Sometimes people need to do this validation of their response headers. Okay, you need to do this, and we can do a lot of these things. Okay, but doing them manually takes efforts. Okay, what if Postman can do that for you? Okay, so next time you are doing this manual testing, you don't have to do it automatically the Postman will do it for you. Okay, first test, someone told they want to do the response code validation. Okay, but I don't know how to write a test script for this. Just hover, the right hand side here. Okay, if you notice, there are a lot of options for you, but for now I want to validate whether the status code is okay. Just click on this. That's it, guys. So now the status code is 200. Now I want to validate that. Okay, if you notice, if I send a request now, there is a new test results tab here. Just click on this. Notice it's automatically doing the validation for you. Okay, suppose if I say I'm expecting 201, if I run the test again, it'll do fail. So there is an assertion failure, and then the expected response to have a status code of 201, but I got 200. Okay, so it is very, very easy, guys, to do the validation. Okay, and this is the description of the test case. You can customize that. Okay, this is custom description, something, whatever you want to give, you can give here. Okay, it's just a description that you want to show. Okay, but I'll keep it in the default one. That's more readable. Status code is 200. I'm trying to validate whether the status code is 200. Okay, so you can validate easily like this. Okay, the next one people told was they want to validate the response time. That's a very good validation. So let's go here and see whether it has some option for that. So it is notice response time. Okay, I'll create response time is less than 200 milliseconds. But basically, in my case, I want to validate whether it is less than 600. That's enough for me. Okay, let's save this and run the test now. If you notice, there are two test results. Both of them got passed because the response time is 546 milliseconds. Okay, so what else? People told schema. We'll come to the schema at the end. I need to explain what is schema and other stuff. And we'll also do the validation of response headers. Okay, let's say code, then successful post request. Okay, I want to validate whether there is a content type header. Okay, in the response. So in the response we are getting, I want to validate whether there is a content type header. Okay, that's it. Here we can go here and choose that. Okay, that's it. It'll do that. So it's telling pm dot response to have header with the name of this. Suppose you want to validate some other thing. Okay, maybe you can also do copy paste of this. And then suppose in my case, I want to do the validation of eta. Okay, then you can copy this and you are just checking whether this is having eta. Okay, so you are validating the headers. And what else you want to do? Maybe in the response body that we are getting, okay, if you notice, we want to validate whether the email, whether I want to validate there is @regress.in, or maybe I want to validate this particular text. Okay, I want to validate this particular text. When I do that, so maybe the first one that you can do is contains a string. Okay, it will just check. It will not check whether it is present in this particular field, but it will directly check whether it is present in the JSON itself. Okay, so I can just give this. Okay, save it, run it. So it got passed. Okay, if there is some mistake here, okay, then it is telling clearly. So there is something wrong here. Please validate that. Okay, so this is okay, but I want to validate exactly in a particular position. Let's take in the body. I want to validate whether the text field here is exactly at this position. Okay, it has to have a JSON object. In that should be another JSON object that is support. In that support there should be a text parameter key and the value should be this. So I have to validate exactly that. So in those cases, there is also a way to do what? Okay, JSON value check. Just click on this. Okay, my validation is, okay, I want to validate whether the text in support object is matching. This is my test case name. Okay, now if you notice this, what they are doing, pm.response.json, which means whatever the response they are getting, they are storing it in some variable. Okay, now you need to iterate that variable and then you need to go to this particular field. Okay, for that we need something called, there is something that failed, that is okay, that's appreciated. Okay, good guys. So again, I'll come back to the basics. So what we are doing is we're getting pm.response.json, which means whatever the response we have, we have it in the JSON format. So it will give you back that. Okay, I'm storing it in some temporary variable. So now I want to get inside exactly let's copy this. The window is a little small, so what I do, I go here, I create a new tab, and online JSON path finder. Okay. Okay, so now we have something like this. This is the response array. So what I want to do, I want to check whether the text field is having this. Okay, for that, see, if you have someone worked with Selenium, so what we normally do to find identify the web elements in a DOM, we normally use XPath. So XPath is a way that you transfers through different elements and try to fix a element that is of your interest. Here there are so many nodes. Okay, we have something like this, then we have something like this. You need to tell a way how to find this text. Okay, you need to tell the path. Suppose if someone is coming from Chennai to your house, you need to tell a direction, right? You need to tell them exactly, you take this particular bus, you get down here, then you take particular auto, and then you come to this particular sheet. Yeah, you will tell the direction, right? The same way we need to tell the path to find this particular text key. So to do that, so there is some online tools available, but you can also do that yourself. Okay, but for now we will take a help from online tools, so that since you are starting it, guys. Okay, first, whatever there in the curly braces, right, you need to separate them using a dot. Okay, so JSON path, basically, okay, whatever that there inside this, you need to use a dot to tell the path. Okay, whatever that is there inside the curly braces, you need to use index. Okay, good. So let's understand and do it. So now there is, I want to get inside this. Okay, so first I need to give a dot and then give one support, right? So I need to give a dot and then give one support, and then support is also having curly braces. I want to find this guy. So after support, I need to put a dot and then find text. Okay, so this is the JSON path for this. Okay, let's see what this guy, this online guys are also telling. Okay, so it's now telling you have two things what you want to go. So I want to go inside this. Okay, and then I want to find the JSON for the for this. Okay, now this is also telling dot support dot text. Ignore about the X. Some people use dollar to indicate the root node, because this is a starting node. People can denote it using X or dollar, whatever they feel comfortable. But yeah, this is more than enough for us. Okay, so now let's take this knowledge, and we have written a JSON path for this. Now we go here. So we have JSON there. What I'm going to do, I'm going to use support dot text. So this is the what we have created, right? So you can also copy this and then paste it, whatever you feel comfortable, applicable. Okay, so now we have written a JSON path. So this JSON path will fetch you the value of that particular field. So it will basically get me all these values. Okay, now I want to check whether it is equal to, control copy, and I didn't copy it properly. So maybe I'll copy it again. Okay, now let's try to run the test now. So now again it is getting passed, but this time we are not just validating whether it is present in the JSON response. We are also validating exactly in this particular place it is present. Okay, suppose if I just tell this key as something like this, now it will tell JSON passing error or fail. So what is the failed? So text in support object is matching. This is a test case name. Okay, assertion error, expected undefined deeply equal to. So we are trying to see whether this is there, but that is not present, because that particular key itself is not there in the body, so it couldn't find it. So the expected is basically undefined here. So that's the power of assertion library present in Postman. You can do all the assertions that you want to do. Okay. So we have almost seen a lot of assertions here. We can also do some more assertions, that is schema assertions. But before doing schema assertions, I want to cover some more thing in JSON path. Let's take an old request. So maybe I'll hit this. I want people to tell write JSON path for this. Okay, why this ID is coming? Okay, I don't want this ID for now. This is a very big JSON path. Okay, now you guys tell me for what I need to find a JSON path. You guys can give me some assignments. Okay, so we can find the JSON path for that, and then we'll try to validate that using Postman. Anything, any ideas, guys? Come on, try it. Or I will find someone and I'll ask. Okay, just do it. ID3 and name Emma. Okay, so ID3 is here and the name is Emma. Okay, good. So now we want to assert that. First, let's take, this is the root node. Okay, so basically I can put a dot here. I don't know whether I can type it here. So, but yeah, I will open a notepad always. Okay, now the root node is dot. Okay, now I want to get inside data. So this is data file. Now this data is an array. So it is array that's having multiple objects. Okay, to imagine for people who haven't had a Java knowledge, so imagine the array will be like this. Okay, and then it will be splitted like this. Okay, it will be splitted like this, and each of these is having an object. Okay, each of this is having an object. So in our case, it's obj1. Okay, it's obj2. Okay, obj2, and each of these having objects. Okay, like that. Now in those one of the object, I want to fetch it value. So this starts with 0th index. Okay, so this is your 0th index. This is your 0th index, and so this next slab is your first index. This is your second index. So this is your third index. Okay, but whatever the assign control. Okay, sorry guys, I removed it. Okay, but whatever the assignment that these guys given is basically ID3. This ID3 is present in 0th index, first index, second index. So I need to give second index. Okay, so what? So I need to add a square brackets like this and then give the indexes 2. So which means from the root node, I'm trying to find the key as data. In that, it is an array. I want to fetch suppose I want to fetch ID1, then I will use 0. If I want to fetch ID2, then I'll use 1. If I want to fetch ID3, then I use 2. And inside that, this is now an object again. Okay, this is now an object. So I can use a dot. Okay, and then I can use ID. Same thing, data to dot first name, first underscore name. So this is your JSON path. Okay, for these two values that you want to verify. So to confirm that, we'll use the online tool that we have, and let's go inside data. So if you notice 0, 1, 2 is the array that I'm speaking about. So I want to get inside. So I do know this is not my interest. The first name is not matching. Okay, this is not matching. Okay, this is the one that is matching. I want to validate ID. So if you notice data2.id. So this is what we have written, data2.id. Okay, and then if you want to validate first name, then I need to use data2.first name. So this is the JSON path that you can use. Okay, suppose let's do the validation here. Okay, let's go to this and then let's go to the test tab, and I want to do a JSON value check. Okay, I want to do a JSON value check. Maybe ID check. Okay, so here I can type a data second array dot ID. Okay, I want to validate whether that guy is equal to, what is that value previously? It was equal to 3. Okay, so now you can mention 3. This is not a string, so it's a number. Okay, now I can copy this, I can paste it here. Okay, and then first name check. Okay, and then here instead of this, first underscore name, I think. Okay, let's check once again. Yeah, it's first underscore name. Now whether it is equal to Emma. Yeah, so this is what you want to do. So let's try to run this test and then check. Yeah, now both the tests got passed. Again guys, each of these blocks is one test case. Suppose I don't want this to be only one test case, then what you can also do, you can just paste it here, so it will do. So you can remove this. So now you you are doing two assertions inside one particular test, so the test count will be only one. So what is the problem with this approach is, suppose if this is failing, okay, if this is failing, let's assume this is failing, what's happened? So you can only get to know whether this is passing. If it is failed, it won't even execute this. So you are not sure, or you are leaving the system in a half cooked state. That is very bad. So that's why I don't like this approach. So if you want, you can also do, like this, but yeah, but the preferred way is have them a separate test, so that if someone is failing, it doesn't stop you from seeing the other one. So let's fail it voluntarily. Now if you notice, we got results for both. That's very good approach, right? Good. So this is how we can write your test cases. Okay. And coming back to the last one that we normally do, schema. Now we need to understand what is schema first. Okay. So schema is very important, because sometimes we are not bothered about the values here. Okay. Whether this is 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, I don't bother. But I just want to validate whether this is just a number field. I don't want a string there. Okay. Because all the code that I have, my backend developers have written, is to just fetch it as a number and then to operate on it. If someone is passing me as a string, they haven't done any of those string passing and all. Okay. So the code will obviously fail. Okay. So I don't want to do that as a unit tester, or someone who is having an SDET knowledge. No, I want to do the schema validation. So I'm not interested in the values, but I'm interested in the parameters and the required field. Suppose, let's say tomorrow this field they are missing. Okay. But in our case, it needs to be a mandatory field, because we haven't coded like if this is not coming, then you need to manage it. We didn't code it like that. So this is a mandatory field. I want to validate that. I want to validate whether this is a string. Okay. I want to validate whether something is a Boolean. So in those cases, you can use schemas. Okay. But let's go back to the test that we are working before. So this is a small test. So we'll take this. And here, if you also notice, sometimes we will get email as this. The next time when I run this test, maybe here it is hard coded, is it? Okay, let me run it again. Okay, now if you notice, this is ID1, the email, the first name, the last name is all getting changed. Okay, based upon the ID that we are generating. So, but in our case, we are generating a random one that is from 1 to 12. So these values keep changing. So I cannot assert any of these values. So what is the maximum thing that I can do is basically check whether the email field is string, whether the first name is string, last name is string, this is also string, and these are also required fields or mandatory fields. Okay, if this is missing, I want to throw an error. So that's what we call it as schema validation. But doing the schema validation is very hard. Again, I know Vinith, you are the one who told you are doing schema validation. How you are doing schema validation so far in your project? Hello, Vinith.
Yeah, Matan. Basically, I used to check it manually.
You need to check it manually, right? So that's
Yeah.
very difficult. So imagine the amount of check that you need to do. It's very hard, and for bigger JSONs, again, it's very difficult. You know how hard it to do schema validation, since you have done it. But for people who haven't done that schema validation, see, validating each and every field is very difficult. Okay, whether it is of string type, again, there is a tendency that we can do mistakes. Okay, now to do it using Postman, we have something called as Tiny Validator. This is again a node module available inbuilt in the Postman, so you don't have to do any work. Just click on this. That's it, guys. Now you have to give the schema here. Okay. Now I want to generate a schema for this particular JSON response JSON. Just copy this, go here, and then online schema generator. Now there will be one from the Liquid Technologies. There are a lot of things that will be available, but the one from the Liquid Technologies is what I like the most and which works very flawlessly. So choose this one, and now give your JSON here and just verify whether you are not a robot. Again, this is causing a lot of issues. Chimneys. I don't know who found this. Okay, but yeah, now I'll generate the schema for this. Now let's understand the schema. Okay. So this is a schema file. Okay. So if you notice, this is a schema of draft 4 version. Just a minute, guys. So the version is 4 here. Okay, there are different version, but for now the version doesn't matter. But yeah, it's of version 4. And now if you notice, the type is object. So that's what we have, right? We have a type as object as the root node. So this is clearly indicated here. So this will basically validate whether it is starting with a JSON object. So that's the first validation that it will do. So if you notice, okay, this is not the file that I'm interested in, control E. So it will basically validate whether this root node is JSON object. So what is the next validation it will do? It will do whether it is having properties as data and then support. Okay, so let's go here, data and support. So it will have two properties. One is data and one is support. It will also do that. And it will also check whether the data is of type object. Okay, whether the data is of type object. Okay, it will also do that. Okay, what else it will do? It will do properties id and it is of type integer. It'll check whether the data is having a property of id and it is of type integer. Okay, so email of type string, first name of type string, last name, all these things are validated. And it also check whether if there is a missing, if something is missing in the response, okay, id, email, first name, last name, of that all should be there. Okay, otherwise it will throw error. Okay, now it will also check whether the support is of type object. Properties, whether it is having two properties. One is URL of type string, whether type text is of type string. It is also check whether these two are both are required fields, which means if something is missing in these two fields, it will throw error. And in the bigger object also, it will check whether the data and support object is there. In here also, it will check whether this data and support is present. If any of these is missing, then it will also throw an error. Okay, so this is basically doing all the validation for you. Okay, now what I'm going to do, you just whatever the schema that we have generated, just I'm going to copy it. Okay, just copy this, go here. Okay, now I'm removing all these things. Okay, and paste it here. This is the schema now. You don't need this, just remove this. This is unnecessary for us. We don't need two of these, just one validation we are going to do. Now we have stored everything in a variable called a schema. Now this is already there. Now I want to tell what is the expected, what is the one that I want to fetch it from, compare it with. So that is available inside pm.response, okay, .json. I want to get the value from pm, that is your Postman variable dot response, and I'll want to get this particular JSON, and I want to compare it with this particular schema. So this tv4 is tiny validator variable, which will do the validation for you. Internally, it will do all the validation. Let's try to run it and see what's happening. So you notice all these things got passed. Let's try to remove something and then see what's happening. Okay, let's assume I'm expecting URL of type integer. Let's try to run the test. Now it is clearly telling, the schema is invalid. Okay, I'm trying to compare whether this is a true, but it is not true. Okay, there is something problem with your schema. Please validate your schema. So that's the level of validation that we can do with this. Vinith, how this looks? Is it easy now? Can you
Yeah,
do?
this is very helpful.
This is very helpful, right? So you
Yeah.
can use this in your company, and then you can demo it to your developers and other people. So this is out of box, right? Doing all this validation is very difficult. You can check if @ is present in email field. Yes, you can do that. We'll do that as well. So let's do it. Okay. So Sailesh here wants to validate whether there is a @ symbol at the email field. Okay, let's do it. So let's take an example. Maybe JSON value check you can also do. Okay, and email field is basically present inside data.email. Okay, so let's do data.email, and I don't want to don't want to do the equal comparison here. So maybe I can just do to contain. Okay, contain dot contain text to contain value, something will be there to contains maybe to contain, okay, at the rate recurse in. Let's try to run it. So if you notice, we're also validating at the rate recurse.in. So you can use to contain. Okay, to dot contain means it will just whether it is containing this. Okay, maybe in your case you can just validate whether it is having at the rate symbol, but you can also compare the whole domain name itself. You can also do the contain. Guys, it's not just limited to equals and contains. You can also validate a lot of things. Okay, it's just a chai assertion library. Okay, great, thanks. Okay, good, no problem.
Mukul, like while validating the schema, let's say some of that validation failed. So is it not possible to know like where it failed? Like because it is directly showing like schema validation
Yeah,
failed.
it is okay to this extent, but I don't know whether that is achievable, but I haven't done that. Maybe you can write some logic to do that. Maybe they are expecting this to be true. What else we can do? Let's try to do something. tv4.validate pm.response.json comma schema. I don't know what this will give, but let's console dot. I don't know, guys. I'm just trying it now. Okay. Uh, let's try to run the test and see what's happening. Okay, it's just passing. But let's go to the console and it's printing me just true. It's just printing it true or false. I think the validation will that's the maximum that library can provide. It seems. Maybe I'll because see, this is giving you true. So what I'm doing, I'm basically asserting the chai using the chai assertion. It's like test assertion. Okay, I'm expecting this is already true. I'm just checking whether it is true. Okay, that's what it is doing. But if there is a false, let's see what's happening. Okay, let's change it to integer and then say it is failing, but it's just printing false. That's the maximum that particular assertion library, that validator library can provide, it seems. So yeah, we have to do the check manually, but still that's okay. Better than nothing. We'll also see whether I will check it out myself. I will check this tiny validator library and see whether it can give you the exact difference. What is the exact field that is matching mismatching? Let's see. We'll some debugging myself and then
Yeah,
let you know.
yeah, no issues, Mukul. And like you mentioned, like we are using child library or TB4. So how come we know like which library we are using? Like once we select the option from the right hand.
See, if you notice, when I type pm.expect, okay, if you notice the postman.chai.expect static. So this is coming from your chai library. Okay, so this suggestions are actually telling from where it is coming. And then based on my experience, I know these are all the assertions that are available in if you are someone from JavaScript background, then you from the name itself you can understand this is from chai assertions. Okay, since we are all from Java, if you see assert equals, then you normally tell, okay, this is from JUnit or from testng. You can directly tell, right? That's based on your experience. So from that I told, but if you want to see, you can see it here. Okay, and here
Okay.
for the based on the tiny validator, see, it is clearly telling use tiny validator for JSON data. So this is a tiny validator schema validation library. Okay, good. So based on this, you can iterate, do a lot of assertions, whatever you want to do, you can do. It's not just it is very limited to this. You can also do a lot of check like uh, here we have done contain. The same way you can also check pm.expect the same values. You can copy it and then not to contain. Okay, so we can also mention not dot to dot contain. So if you want to check whether you want to check is not containing something, okay, it's not containing 1 2 3 4, then you can also do that. So all these things you can go and explore. But yeah, guys, if you just understand how can you do the assertion, then you can go and Google, okay, how to validate using child library that this is not present. Okay, then you will get the snippet, copy paste and use it. First you need the basic understanding which one to use, how to use it, and what are the available options. then you can basically go Google and get all this information. Okay, I'm also not someone who remembers everything. Okay, you can, as a human, you cannot remember everything. All I know is I can do assertion using child library in Postman. You can use schema validation using Tiny Validator. So that's it. Okay, you don't have to remember everything by heart. That's something that I don't believe in. Yeah, so you can do all this validation by yourself. Okay, good. Now we have done a lot of validations. We'll go further, and then we'll try to do some other operations. We are so far only seen the get request. We'll go ahead and learn about post, patch, put, and delete. Guys, any doubts before
Hi,
we? Yeah,
yeah, Amudan, I have a little query. So
yeah.
can you please scroll it up a little bit where we have third and fourth test case we have done?
Okay,
Just
this is the
okay, now
third one.
below, just here
Yeah,
we have mentioned like we are just looking for the response. We have mentioned two double inverted commas, and before below that
yeah.
mm,
Anything is fine. You can use double inverted commas or a
both
single.
will work, right?
Both will work for string. It's JavaScript. So since I am
Okay.
from Java background, I always put double quotes.
Yes, yeah, right.
So
Yeah.
both will work. Don't worry. So
Okay.
it will
Thanks.
work in both the cases.
Okay.
Okay, good. And now we have learned about all these things. Let's go back to the Regress API that we are working on, and we have seen about get. So get is basically you get some information. So you can use query parameters to filter and sort the resources. You can also use path parameters to specifically pick a resource. That's what we have seen here. And now we'll learn about post. Post is all about creating a new users. So this is the endpoint. So let's try to use it in our code. Okay, let's create a new request, and let me name it as create a user. Okay, and this create user, I'm going to use control A, copy this, and I don't need this parameters. This is the endpoint, right? This is what they have mentioned. Endpoint is API/users. That's it. You hit this particular endpoint and pass me the body in the form of JSON. Okay, you will get the response code of 201 and the and the response body is this. Okay, so it will randomly generate some ID for you, and it will also return you the time. Okay, so this is how they have designed this particular API. Okay, in your case it may be different. So basically this is enough for us. So let's play around and let's try to copy this API/users, go to the body. Now previously we have only used params. We are not yet used authorization headers and all, but let's see about that later. But for now we want to pass some body, because post requests always need some information. Okay, you either pass it in a form of form data, URL encoded, or raw, or binary, or GraphQL. I'll come to the GraphQL. That's very interesting use case, but we are not going to see about that, but I'll tell you some good examples of that. But in our case we are going to pass a JSON, so you need to choose raw, click on JSON, pass the JSON here. Again, if you see the different color coding, that means, okay, it's a valid JSON. If you have some errors, maybe then it will throw you error like this. Okay, then you need to check what is the error and then fix it. Okay, there are online tools available to validate whether a JSON is correct or not. So you can just Google online validator for JSON, something like that, and then validate and then fix it. Okay, good. Because if it is a small JSON, there is very less chances that you make a mistake. But if it is a big JSON, there are plenty of chances that you make do some mistakes. Good. Let's try to create a new user. This is the one they have mentioned, and let's try to send it. Okay, if you notice, it is not giving us anything because it is giving us 200 back. So because we haven't changed this to post request, so we need to change this to post request. Okay, let's try to run it now. Now this is giving me 201 created, the time, the size, and if you also notice, it is giving me a response body, and it has created a new thing called as ID 363. Okay, good. So now I want to do some assertions. So first assertion that I want to do is status is 200, but I'll customize this to 201. Okay, that is one assertion that I want to do. And most importantly, I want to fetch this value ID. Okay, and then I also want to check. Okay, once I created a new ID, I want to check whether that particular user is still there. Okay, so basically for that I need to get this response value. Okay, so let's take that response value. So what you can do, I will set a collection level variable. Okay, set a collection variable. What is the key? Key is basically I can give some key as ID. Okay, I don't know whether we have something called as ID already there. Okay, there is no ID, so I can use ID. And what is the value? So value is something that I want to fetch from the JSON response. So what you can do basically pm dot response dot JSON dot here I want to get the ID. Okay, this is what we have done. Again, if you guys are confused how to do this, then you guys can go do a JSON value check. Okay, and here if you notice we are doing pm dot response dot JSON and then dot that particular JSON path. Here the JSON path is very simple because there is only one root node. I'm just putting dot and then dot ID. Okay, you can also create a temporary variable like this. Okay, you can create a temporary variable like this, and then you can just tell JSON data dot ID. Anything is fine. Okay, whatever you feel comfortable. Okay, you can use that. Okay, now I will set the ID as this. Okay, let's try to run the test and see what's happening. So this time it has created 376, and now if I go to the collection level stuff, I have a new variable that is ID that is of 376. Now in the next request, okay, I want to also do one more request. Okay, that is maybe I'll move this here, and in this next request I want to get the user, but this time I want to instead of passing the ID, okay, instead of previously we are generating it randomly and then we passed it to the path parameters here. Now this time I don't want to generate it randomly, rather I want it from collection. Okay, that is ID. So what it does, okay, let's try to run it. Okay, because first I need to create a user. Okay, I'll create a user and then I'll do get user. Okay, it's still not working. Okay, let's see what's happening. It's a collection level variable and it's of 409. It's not working.
Basically, it does not contain in the database. I think 1 to 12
Okay,
is
I
the
think they are not creating it. Okay, that's just a dummy API, so you don't have to worry about it too much. So maybe that ID. And then previously we used something called as what we used here. We used int. Okay, so we'll use the same thing here. I think it's a dummy database, so they are not storing the new ID, so that's okay. But for now, just to understand, we have created something using post request, and you have an option to read those values and then do some operations. Okay, I thought of explaining a request response chaining here, but yeah, we can take about some other use case and do it. But for now, we have understood what is a post request, but there is a use case where I want to, I don't want to type this manually. I want this to be generated automatically. So just remove this and then use a double braces. And then you can type random full name or random name, random file name. All these things are available. Maybe random first name. And then here, random job title, okay, job title seems to be more relevant. That's it, guys. So click on this. So it's create all these things for you. You don't have to worry about it. Okay, you don't have to worry about the data management, right? So every time it creates a new random data. That's the power of Postman. Okay, it does a lot of things. We don't know what it all does. So we are learning all those things one by one. Okay, now let's learn about another request. That's put. Put is something that is used to update already existing one. Okay, so here what they are doing, they are updating the second user. Okay,
Amuthan, before we proceed, I want to ask that the random first name which you have generated, so this is the default behavior of Postman. This is not they are not coming from different library, right?
no, so the thing is, this Postman guys, okay, they don't write the code themselves. Okay, they have internally used in Java we have faker library, you guys know. To generate random data in Java we have faker library. The same way in JavaScript also the faker is there. Okay, they internally used those, they created a wrapper around that and then they have given that in the form of like this. Okay, so they are internally using faker library. Okay, but these are all something that is coming from Postman. Okay,
Okay, Matan.
Okay, good. Don't worry about too much things like where this library or it's not that needed. Okay, as long as you can generate random data, that's absolutely fine. Okay, good. And so we have learned about these things, and let's go to the put request, and let's create one more tab. So let's go here, add a request. This time this is going to be update user, and this is of type put. So I just change the HTTP method to put. And what is the endpoint? So basically the endpoint is API/users/2. So I'll copy this from here, and here is colon ID. So again, the ID, I am going to use it randomly from int. So int, right? So because we are randomly generating that there, okay, maybe if I just try to run this alone, it will not work. So no problem. It will already having some value, so it will use that. So it will work. So let's try to go to the body. Okay. So already, if you notice, if I hardcore, if you remove this, if I get the value about 2, it is having Janet, Weaver, something, all these things. Okay. Suppose I want to change this information, then I can do that. Okay. Sorry guys, I did mistake. Good. So create user, update user. Now I go to the body, raw, JSON, and let's change the job title. Previously we sent something, now we'll send something. This time also I'm just updating some random values. Random job title. Something like this. Okay. Just pass the ID alone. Okay. Now let's try to send the request. So if you notice, it has updated. Okay. I don't know which ID it updated. So if you want to go and see, so if you notice, the put request updated the ID number 2. Okay. So it is giving me 200 back. If you want to do the assertions, go to the test, add those particular tests. It's very, very simple. You guys know how to do it. Okay, I'm not doing it. Maybe if you want, you can also do it. The only thing that I feel very uncomfortable using Postman is their size is very small. Like you cannot able to optimize that. So that's the problem. But yeah, you can validate whether the status code is 200. Okay. This is the put request. So the put request is basically used to update some already existing values in the database. Okay. So that's the use of put request. We can also do some delete operations. So let's go and delete. Just to pass the same thing, but you're going to get 204 response. There is no response body. So let's go there, create one more, create add request, and this is going to be delete request. That name is going to be delete user, and the request URL is basically this, and the ID value, let's get it from collection level. Okay, that's it guys. So let's click on delete. You don't have to pass anything. You just pass which ID that you want to delete. It is giving you 204 content back. So go to the test, and then you can write status code check. That is the only check that we can do very effectively here. So 204 and status is 204. Okay, good. So this is all about assertions, create, update, get, and delete. This is the crude operation that we are speaking about. There is something that is different, that is called as patch. Okay, patch is something that you don't have to always pass all the fields. Okay, let's take an example. Here there are two values. Okay, in put request it is mandatory that you need to pass both these two values, even though you are updating just only one. Okay, so guys, again I'm repeating, in put request you need to pass all the values even though you are only updating only one field. So that is not a good thing to do, because you are transferring a lot of information, whereas you just want to update only one field, right? In case of patch, okay, patch is like repairing. Okay, you don't have to, this is a dummy server, so I cannot give you an exact explanation. But if you just want to change the name, just send the name alone. You don't have to send all these things. Okay, so that's the use of patch. Okay, imagine you have your bike or car, it got punctured. So put is something like you replace it with a new tire. Okay, so it's basically an expensive operation, right? So instead you can use a patch. So you do some so repair it using a puncture. You can repair that puncture and then just reuse that same tire, right? So that's all about it. Put is very expensive piece of operations, whereas a patch is not that expensive. Apart from that, there is nothing to explain in put and patch. Okay, that very small differences. Okay, and then we also have something called as head. Okay, so we have understood about patch. Patch is something that's it's very less expensive. Okay, expensive operation than put. Okay, just send only the field you want to update. Okay, and head is something. Okay, head is something that is really helpful. Suppose let's say that if you are making a get call and notice that it is downloading you a heavy file, maybe 1 GB of file, or it is sending you a response of size more than 10 MB. Okay, so in those cases, okay, you want to understand how the get method is going to perform or how expensive this get method can be. So in those cases, you can call same get. Okay, same get can just use head. Okay, you can just use head and then you can hit on head. In those cases, it'll give you 200 back. It will send you the response code. Okay, but the only thing is it will not give you the response itself. Rather, it will only give you back the headers. Okay, in the headers, it will sell all the information. What is the content type? What is the content length? What is the size of the response can be? All this information will be provided in the header. Okay, so this is a dummy API, so you may not get the relevant information. But in case of real world, okay, before doing a get request, they do the head request. Head is very important, right? Head is very important in our body. The same way, head request can be used to only fetch, okay, not the response body, but the response headers. So the server will send the information to the client, like what and all things, maybe the content length, the size of the request. Okay, all these things will be fetched using the head request. Okay, got it? Now there is one more thing that is called as options. Okay, options is here basically. Maybe if you do a options request, the I don't know whether this API will support that, but okay, this is not supporting it. But yeah, what it will do is basically it will give you back what and all the operations that it supports. Okay, let's say Google server. Okay, Google is a server. What and all things that it supports? It only supports get and head. Okay, something like this. It will give you list of all the HTTP methods that you can use on this particular servers. Okay, suppose imagine Indigo. Indigo is not only supplying to Make My Trip, it is also giving details to other Yatra and other stuff, right? So in those cases, Make My Trip wants to know what and all the HTTP methods that these guys that Indigo supports. Then they send an option request to their base URL, and then those will give them all the details about the HTTP methods. Then they suppose if the head method is not built in Indigo, there is no particular reason why you want to send a head request to a Indigo server. So that's the use of options. So head is similar to get, but without response and with only headers. Okay, head is predominantly used before making an expensive get call. Okay, expensive get call. Okay, options used to get the supported HTTP methods from server. Okay, so this is basically the different types of stuff you need to use. Okay, again, these are all also not important. If you guys know, maybe this 5 is more than important, but these 4 are very important. Crude is very important. Good guys, I think we have kind of covered enough for today. What I do, we are also on time, so maybe we'll connect tomorrow. Okay, we'll come. I know we are as per the schedule, Sunday we will have a rest, but we will connect tomorrow. We will continue and complete the Postman. Okay, we have something like collection render, Newman reporter, and HTML extra, 3 topics. I can cover it tomorrow, and then you can take a break on Monday and Tuesday so that you guys can practice whatever we have learned in the Postman, and then we can join again on Wednesday. Okay, so if you have any doubts before we leave, you can ask me now. Otherwise, we will see tomorrow.
Yeah, hi, Amotan. I have query like we have certain parameters like we need to check the JSON data, the response headers and all. So
Yeah.
these are the basic like these are the only things we need to check for every request.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay, good.
So in response headers we can select as per our like we can check verify any header or just there's some criteria or conditions to check like these headers
It's
we
your
need to
use
check.
case. It's your business use case. Like if your company have decided, some important information like maybe in headers, they have some field called something that they want to validate. Okay, then you can also do that because header is the place where you transfer important information. So it can vary based upon companies and how they design it. Okay, some companies transfer all the information via the response body. Some do that via headers. Some do that via cookies. And yeah, we are not yet covered cookies, but yeah, we'll do that. But for now, just understand if there is a use case that you want to validate, you can validate that. Okay.
Okay, so it will be shared with us like we need to check those headers or we have to
Yeah, it will be shared. Don't worry. As a
okay.
manual testers, yeah, you will be in a position to understand at least what and all things that are very important and relevant. Then you will validate that.
Okay. So as we have used like in the URL like we have mentioned ID. So
Yeah.
we can use only the unique one or we can use the first name or any other as well.
For what?
Like as we have used ID as a variable, we
Yeah,
are
it's a
just
path parameter, right?
right.
Path parameter can be mostly your ID because that's how they see whatever things that we are sending here is correlated to something in database. Okay, in database you have something called as primary key, which most probably is your ID. Okay,
Okay.
it's about how the people build it. So since we are going to learn about how to build it using Spring Boot in the end of the class, you get enough understanding of what I am speaking now. Okay,
Okay.
you can also build using email, that is but nobody will do that. So you can also do that. It's not nobody going to stop you from doing it, but people don't do it. Okay, because they don't want that to happen. Okay, good. We're going to do all those we're going to develop Spring Boot APIs using Spring Boot. You will learn about it then. Okay, and again
Okay.
guys, one more thing, like if you are seeing like, so there are some tests that we are quite repetitive. Okay, status code test, maybe some time test. Okay, then in those cases you can go to the collection level and you can add the test here. Okay, suppose I want to check whether the timing is always less than 1000 seconds for all my requests. Okay, just a minute guys. Okay, then you can add it here. Okay, this, if you add it here, you don't have to mention in each of the different places. Okay, so this is going to be a cool thing. Okay, if you want to, if you're doing some validations across all the collection requests, then you can do it here. Okay, you don't have to do it in everything else. Okay, that's another thing. Is prerequisite script is something that gets executed before running each of these requests. Okay, if you're executing this, if you set it at a prerequisite script at the collection level, it will be also get executed. So if you have a use case to execute a prerequisite script before each API, then you can use the collection level prerequisite script. If you have to write a test that is for a collection level, then you can write those test cases here. Okay, that's the cool thing about using a collection level prerequisite script and test. You can also do authorization with the collection level, but we are not yet there. We'll learn about that in detail. Okay, good. That's all from me today, guys. We'll connect tomorrow, and then okay, we'll complete the Postman. Then you have enough time to learn about Postman and practice it for 2 days. Then we'll again join back on Wednesday. Okay. Any other doubts
Okay.
before we wrap the class?
Can you
Amrut,
please share the text file along with the recording?
Okay, text file. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll just upload in the same folder. No
Okay.
worries. Anything from anyone else?
Amrut, no, this is the first class I've been joining. Just wanted to quickly check. I mean to say, would you be teaching the framework side of the things as well?
Yeah,
Or
yeah. We're going to develop the framework for REST assured SOAP UI. Even in the Postman, most of this is the framework is covered in the Postman itself. So we are also going to drive it from the Excel sheet tomorrow. We're going to generate beautiful reports. We're going to do a lot of things. Yeah, we're going to do that.
okay, yeah, using the paste patterns, right?
Yeah, design patterns and everything. Yeah, that is for REST assured. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We're going
That's
to
the
create
only.
everything from the scratch, guys. We are not whatever the knowledge that you guys, if you watch it from the first video, even if you don't know about manual testing of the APIs, you should be in a fine position to learn all these things, and you can become an expert by the end of this course. That's the purpose of this course. Okay, people normally only teach REST assured. Okay, if you only learn REST assured, what you will get it? See, REST assured basically is very difficult. Okay, you need to construct a lot of things. Okay, but in Postman, the same APIs can be automated very easily. Okay, so you need to think where I need to use REST assured, where I need to use Postman. Okay, and some companies also using SOAP UI. So you learn about API testing, you go to a new company, they are using SOAP UI. How will you accommodate? That's why I have covered everything. Okay, there are only 3 tools that are mainly used in Postman in API testing, that is Postman, SOAP UIs, and then we also have REST assured. I'm covering all those things in one single course. Okay, so basically after this course you can become an expert in API testing. Okay, that's what I can guarantee. Could anything else from anyone?
Are you going to cover authorization tomorrow as well, Amrut?
Yeah, we will do that. So I know when to speak about authorization, because I don't want to confuse you guys. Okay, so relax, be with me. Okay, all these topics will be covered. Okay, I have done this coaching for so many days. So if I speak about authorization the first day itself, you guys will get confused. Okay, authorization, we are going to do a lot of authorizations. Okay, we are going to deal about that. But be with me. I know when to cover that. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, thank you.
Good. Then I'll